Apathy in online communication, particularly through social networking, is rapidly impacting the media world. Research houses and service providers like media owners are facing the challenge of harnessing this medium to their benefit. How can this best be achieved? Do we need a greater cooperation among SARF and SAMRA? Matthew Gloger, Deputy Managing Director of KLA and SAMRA Corporate Chairman, is here to explain. Plus, Marion Scher joins us as this week's guest host. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Matthew, social networking, is it an opportunity or is it a threat?
It's a bit of both, really, because what social networking has done is it's created a channel of communication between millions and hundreds of thousands of people within South Africa, across the world. So there's loads of data, there's loads of opinion, there's loads of text flowing between people. The challenge comes through in looking at the quality of that information. So now we can access so much content quite quickly, quite cheaply, but the quality of the content may lead us down the wrong direction. So a bit of both.
Your view on that, Marion?
I think
for the future of research?
Yes, I think it's a very interesting one. And I suppose it depends on what you're researching, who that target market is. And if it's youngsters, because obviously the sort of stuff, as Matthew said, that sometimes is twittered and put on Facebook is so inane. You almost need a filter. And I suppose eventually that, perhaps Microsoft or Google will come out with a filter. I don't know. I mean, at the moment, it seems impossible.
It's an interesting idea. It's almost as if, we get the same kind of content if we listen to everybody's conversations all the time, because that's essentially what we are doing through, when we strip information out of the online space. People talk a lot of rubbish, really. So yeah, there's a lot of valid content, but ultimately it's going to come back to a person, a human with a brain who can make a call about whether something's important or not.
But let's look at Facebook and let's look at ads, for example, posted on Facebook. You can it's so targeted, it's so measurable, you can do it in-house, it's cost effective, so somehow, somewhere is it really not, are you saying it's not at all affecting research as a whole? I mean, what about AMPs? How would it affect the likes of AMPs?
Well, I mean, in terms of advertising, absolutely, you do get to target. It's so targeted, not so much. I mean, right now you can say male or female, you can talk about broad age group, you can talk about region, but not much more than that. If it becomes more targeted, then absolutely fantastic way of advertising, fantastic targeted messages, but a different message via that medium. You cannot, as an advertiser and as a marketer, say the same thing in a Facebook or an online or a banner ad as you can in a television or below the line activation, etc., etc. Different mediums do different things. It's always going to come back to horses for courses. So what we have is another channel to measure and another channel to use. A replacement channel, that's a far more difficult thing to firmly have an opinion about.
So how can you as a corporate body then cooperate with social media?
Right. Well, SAMRA's function is to first of all make sure that all market research houses adhere to a set of standards, a professional set of standards, and those are international standards. We subscribe to the SMR code and actually use it as the SAMRA code of conduct. We're also about giving resource to market researchers and representing the industry within the community and the business world as a whole. So how can we create cooperation? I guess it's up to them and us talking to one another. I don't know if there's a need for us to cooperate. Really, we have to make sure that we stay within the rules, and if they have a problem with any one of us breaking the rules, they can come to us as SAMRA, and for them, I guess we have to learn to work with them and measure that new channel and get the cooperation from them that we would from a TV broadcast or a radio or any other media.
So I guess there'll always be a place for research.
I bloody well hope so. Yes, because as I said in my first point, you need a brain. You need a mind at the end of it to say, is that a relevant fact or not? Also, people overclaim so much. What people say and what they do are not the same thing. Never have been. We say what we think people want to hear. We say what we even think we know why we do things, but we don't. You need experience, you need qualifications to take out meaning from content.
Let's look at SAMRA, and SAMRA controls the standards within the industry. So how are the standards determined?
As I said, we've adopted the SMR, which is an international market research bodies. We've adopted their code. That's a code of conduct that makes sure we stay within a set of rules. So it's about people's rights to privacy. It's about interviewing children. It's about what we can do and what we can't do as market researchers. In terms of standards of market research, it's really the wallet of the client that determines what's good and what's bad. If you do a piece of research and you get value from it and you think it was quality, you'll go back and do it again. Standards is a much harder thing to control. It's like controlling these standards in advertising in the same way. There's a lot of great ads out there and there's a lot of not so great ads out there.
When you hear that sometimes, though, that strong message coming out, especially from YouTube, and everyone talks about these, for instance, the Susan Boyle phenomena, just to use that word spreading, suddenly something happens. I mean, that's a specific issue. But when a brand, for instance, do you get messaging like that? Are you starting to hear through social networking that a brand is doing something exciting?
Okay, so I mean, we're talking about viral communication and viral marketing, which in South Africa is still a much, much lesser phenomenon than it is overseas. So I don't think the South African Market Research Organization is fully geared to measure that yet. I'm not even sure that we are internationally. There are new offerings, there are new products that are starting to measure that space and look at that space. It hasn't really hit us yet, and I don't think we're really ready for it yet. But again, we've got to take a ton of data and distill it into a kilogram of meaningful information, because so much of it is inane.
I think every organisation should employ an 18-year-old, really.
Maybe that's the answer.
I think so.
How does South African research compare to the rest of the world?
I think we lag in the same way that our economy does. A lot of companies locally have global affiliations. A lot of them are part of global networks and global brands, and so are being consistently fed new technologies, new approaches, new information, etc., etc. So the information is available and it is flowing freely. Our market and our location hold us back a bit. So in the same way our economy lags the global economy by about 4 months, South African market research probably lags international market research by about 6 months. But we're hearing about the same things that the international guys are: biometric measurements, all of the online research, etc., etc. So that's not a worry of mine.
How do I, as a client, know that I'm getting good quality research?
Right, that's a really, really loaded question, because so many clients determine the quality of their research by the answer they get, which is
what we want to hear.
It's the researcher's
Is it the
complaint.
answer they want?
Absolutely. Good quality research answers the objectives that you set out, gives you good value for money, and answers your questions. That's what good quality research, in a way that you can trust, that you have to believe in. So there's a science behind it, but the science is up to us. The sampling, the confidence intervals, the stats, etc., etc. That's our job, and you either trust us or you don't. Hopefully you do. But then there's a good quality research. Did we answer your question? The output is almost always only as good as the input. If you brief me badly, I'm going to give you bad results.
And then how do you ensure that the research stays quite relevant?
Research is most often is a snapshot of a moment in time. So research continuing to be relevant means you need to refresh it at the appropriate interval. Not everything needs to be measured daily, weekly or monthly. Some things can be measured every 1 or 2 years. Things like brand identities, which shift quite slowly, don't need to be measured so frequently. But the relevance of research is about refreshing and evolving with your client and your client's target market. So now if we completely ignored, for example, social networking, then we would be less relevant, because the world has changed and we need to measure the consumer in the world in which he lives today, or she.